Hi, this is Jejin again. Yeah. So the today's topic that I wanted to talk about is children's brain development. Yeah. So this is a topic that I've been thinking about quite some time. Yeah. And basically what I wanted to understand is how this brain development actually affects the teens and preteens behavior or decision making that we as an adult find strange, right? Or immature or irrational, right? So definitely, we can easily say that they lack an experience. They haven't gone through the similar problem before, so they probably struggle, and they may, sometimes they make some poor decisions on this. But the experience, lack of experience is not the only reason for that, right? So we know that their brain is developing right now, so their brain is growing, and there's definitely a physiological reason why they make some poor decision, and not only the poor decision but also they're overly emotionally sometimes, right? And then sometimes like there's some emotional swing and some aggressiveness comes up, and then some rebelliousness comes up. I think this all has to do, um, well, in some sense it all has to do with the brain development. There's some hormone stuff as well, but we're going to focus on brain development this time. So definitely this one requires some research. So I've looked through some online resources. There are a ton of information out there. It was very, very helpful. So I'll try not to put together some list of links in the description so you guys can go in and watch. All right. So in this video, I'll try my best to explain some of the details of the brain development. But more importantly, I wanted to give some thoughts, or I just share my thoughts on what we as a parents can do for our children, right? So now we know how this brain development affects the behavior or decision making, quality decision making, and we know how why those poor decisions are made, and what can we do about it, right? Those are the sort of important things that I wanted to cover in this video, right? So okay, so when we talk about the brain development, right? So I'm not trying to be pretend to be an expert in neuroscience or anything like that. So according to the experts in neuroscience, who talks about adolescents or teenager brain development, they often mention about these two main parts of the brain. Yeah, there are many parts of the brain, but I think a lot of experts mention about these two main parts of the brain. So the first one is called prefrontal cortex, and the second one is a limbic system. So the prefrontal cortex is a part of the brain that is responsible for this rational and logical thought process. Yeah. So this part of the brain actually enables us to think about pros and cons or certain matters, or just thinking about the consequences of certain event or something. So it can eventually lead to a problem solving. So it's more of an intellectual brain that actually distinguishes human beings from other animals, right? So I think this part of the brain kind of developed later point of time in terms of evolution, right? So what the expert says is this prefrontal cortex is some more of outer side of the brain compared to the limbic system, right? Okay. So so I just explained the prefrontal cortex. So the limbic system is more of a primitive brain that is kind of similar to what other animals have. So this limbic system is also called the reptile brain. So evolution-wise, it was kind of developed early days, kind of compared to similar to what other animal is for the human being. So this part of the brain is dealing with emotions, instincts, and some survival, and then just detecting the threat or something like that for the survivor, I guess. So these two main parts of the brains are actually are used for the human beings to actually process information and then deal with the situation, right? So so when they talk about the development of this, so now we're talking about the development of this brain. And the development of a brain for these two different parts has different time frame, right? So the limbic system, which is the primitive part of the brain, actually develop first. So by age 9, you probably get the fully grown limbic system. That part of the brain is fully grown. For prefrontal cortex, for it to grow fully, right? So it takes about 25 to 28 years for human being to have the fully developed prefrontal cortex part of the brain, right? So if you are thinking about the teenager time, they're like teenagers, right? So they're kind of halfway there, which means the logical thought process, or rational thought process, the prefrontal cortex of part of the brain is 50% grown, right? So the physically, even if they have a lot of thought process going on, their brain is not fully developed compared to an adults, right? So when you it's not fair for us to think as a parents, adults, to think that the teenagers will have the same level of rational and logical thinking, because their brain is not, there is 50% ready. They're they have to wait like another decades to get to the fully grown brain, right? So that's the reason why the teenagers making and poor decisions, and not sometimes not a rational decision, because they tend to use the emotional, the emotional brain, which is the limbic system, rather than the logical and rational brain, right? Okay, so now that we understand the teenagers the brain development, so especially for the logical brain development, they're at like 50% capacity compared to us. So basically, your expectation should be 50%. Like, when you make the decision on rational and logical decision, you should have a 50% less expectation for them, right? Uh, but I think we as a parents, so knowing the fact their rational brain is 50% in capacity, 50% developed, what can we do to help them use more of rational brain, or practice their more rational brain, I guess. So here are the things that I think is useful. The first thing is you shouldn't create this sudden events to them. Uh, so what I mean by that is we shouldn't this sudden events such as yelling or like grabbing something out of them, and unexpected sort of event you create to them, they're gonna use the emotional brain. They're gonna use a limbic system to respond to you. So I don't know if this one is a good example or analogy for this, but so let's say if there's a dog, right? And there's a puppy there and sleeping or walking by, and if you just create a sudden events to them, what's going to happen? The dog will get frightened, and what will the first thing that the dog will do? Dog will bark at you, right? That's the immediate response to using this emotional, the primitive brain. What I mean by sort of sudden events, if you just trying to teach them, or they trying to have them logical thinking, you shouldn't create this yelling, the sudden events such as yelling, or frighten them to give them lesson or something like that, right? So if you want them to use the logical brain, do not provide this threat to them, because they receive that as a threat, and they're not going to use the rational brain, they're going to use the emotional brain. Okay, so along with that, the second point is, I guess, so what we can do is, when they react with the emotional brain, to lead them to use the logical brain, we need to be calm. We need to be patient, right? And if you create a threat again, they're going to continue to use their emotional brain rather than logical brain. I don't know if that, I think it makes sense, right? Yeah. And okay. And the third thing, I guess, is this logical brain need a lot of practice, right? So it's not the cell growth of the brain, the neuron interaction, thought process actually strengthen the that part of the brain. So what are the good things for us to provide to our teenagers to strengthen those logical part of the brain is definitely a book, right? So having them in a habit of books, because it provides the book provides a lot of information or information and thought process to the reader, and reading a lot of books actually causes this logical part of the brain to be used a lot more. So I think that's a good way uh, for us as a parent, providing this the books and the environment for them to read more books. I think enables this logical brain to be used and strengthen these neuron interactions in their brain. Right. Okay. And also like the sports and any activity, right? Sports and the musical instrument and things like that, and arts and things like that. It actually uses their emotional brain along with the rational brain. I think when you play a soccer and then you wanted to sort of quickly respond to do certain actions, right? So that they definitely use the rational brain as well, instrument as well. So I think those activities are basically really good for your children, rather than having them kind of looking through the phone and watching a TikTok or YouTube, I guess. Okay. Okay, I feel like I'm kind of cover very small part of the teenager brain development maybe, so I may create a like second part of the video, but I don't know yet. We'll see. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching and have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.